As far as I'm concerned, learning how to delegate and what to delegate is probably the entrepreneur, the business owner's most important skill. Doing it all yourself is recipe for failure. So I guess my advice is if you can outsource, outsource. Do that. When you have employees in your organization, determine what tasks they're best at, what they're better than you at.
Welcome to the Executive Connect podcast. Today, I'm excited to speak with Stacey Giulianti, Chief Legal Officer at Florida Peninsula Insurance Company, to talk about his journey into a billion-dollar business. Welcome, Stacey.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be on your show, and I feel honored to be here. I know you get a lot of great guests, so maybe I'll live up to the rest of them. We'll find out at the end of this, right?
Absolutely. I'm like I normally do. I'm just going to jump right in and ask you a few questions. So can you share with our listeners some key strategies and decisions that have helped you propel Florida Peninsula into a billion-dollar enterprise?
Such an important question. And first of all, obviously, there's a little bit of luck involved in everything, right? Doesn't mean, you can't prepare. Luck favors the prepared mind. But there is a little bit of luck in everything. So I don't want to pat myself on the back too hard and hurt myself, complimenting myself for all the hard work we've done. It has been a lot of hard work to go from a cocktail napkin to $1 billion a year in revenue. But there is a little bit of kind of a divine and or universal providence, something that kind of helps you along the way, and a little bit of luck, I would say. And so we certainly have had our share of that. But in that, we've done a lot. One of the things that I think we've done is that we decided to make sure that we had people around us that knew what they were doing. Because I think a lot of entrepreneurs try to do everything at once. You think you can do everything because, look, I'm walking in, I'm the guy or I'm the woman, I can take care of everything, I don't need any help. And to me, that's the surest way of failure. If you can't admit that you need help, if you can't admit that you're not great at everything, but you're good at certain things, you're not going to be able to build a business. You're not going to be able to scale. You're not going to get it off the ground. So that's the most important rule, is knowing what you're good at, what you're not good at, and getting the help you need to take your business to each successive level.
That's fantastic. I think that philosophy is something that a lot of people should subscribe to, because you are right. Entrepreneurs, we can do it all. We're scaling things from zero to something, and sometimes it's easier for us just to do something than to delegate. So I love that philosophy is fantastic.
Thank you.
So you have such a phenomenal background. I love law, professor, and now in the insurance industry. How has these different industries taught you and pivoted you and your career? And really just how do you lead people based on those different pivots in your career?
For me, I've been a lawyer for over 30 years, and the first 12 years of my career, so I'm no mathematician, but let's say 40% of my overall career, I actually represented policyholders. I represented customers, just like you, against insurance companies in disputes, lawsuits, disputes, mediation, arbitrations, appraisals. So for the first 12 years of my career, I represented the individual, the consumer, battling sometimes or negotiating with insurance companies to make sure my clients got what they needed. And since then, for the last 18 or 19 years, I've been on the other side of the insurance company that I helped co-found. And so starting off in the consumer's shoes really gave me a perspective. I think a lot of people in big business, at least maybe this is my prejudice, and I'll admit that, they come from big businesses and big insurance companies and big corporations, and they don't start off on their kitchen table. And I know people like Jeff Bezos did and Steve Jobs did, but a lot of people don't. They kind of come in as these heavy hitters already. And I didn't. I came in as an individual corporate lawyer by myself, consumer lawyer by myself, or with small firms before heading into the corporate side. And so I'm still a person's lawyer. When a customer calls and says they don't understand why something was done or why a bill or a claim was paid in a particular way, I need to have my people or even myself sometimes explain, because I still feel like I'm that consumer or that consumer attorney. So having that perspective of what the customer wants really takes you off onto the next level. My original business partner, the guy who came up with the initial idea and he was an insurance agent for a national insurance company. He was an insurance agent, one of those like local agents. And so he knew what the agents needed because our customers in the insurance business are not just the policy holders, they're also the agents who sell our policy. So we have almost two customer bases that we have to deal with. We want the customers happy. We also want the agents who sell our policy and recommend us happy. So he brought that perspective of being an agent and what agents want and what agents need in order to succeed. So again, we didn't start off as some highfalutin presidents of some insurance company. We started off as two regular guys who, came from, normal middle class backgrounds. But we decided we wanted something more and we thought we could do it. We were crazy enough to think that we could start an insurance company. And then we got some people who actually had some money to join us and get that dream off the ground. So I think that's the perspective that I bring.
Which is fantastic, just hearing your story, because Florida Peninsula is one of Florida's it's one of the largest homeowner insurance companies, isn't it today?
It is. And we're part of what we call the Windward Risk Manager Group. And we have Florida Peninsula Insurance Company, Edison Insurance Company, and as of last week, we got approval to start Ovation Home Insurance Exchange. So we have 3 insurance companies under our belt, along with a claims processing company, a concierge agency. We also have a reinsurance advisory and reinsurance company. So we have a bunch of companies under our kind of holding group. So we've really grown beyond that. But yeah, we started off and we were Florida Peninsula Insurance. And since then, we've grown into those other areas and we're really a kind of a full service property company. And when you add it all up, we're definitely in the top maybe 4 or 5 insurance carriers in terms of homeowners and property in the state of Florida, which is, one of the biggest states in the country, especially for insurance.
Congratulations on that and your team.
Thank you.
And you touched on it a little bit at the beginning, delegation. I think that's something a lot of people I interact with or leaders I hear about have a hard time delegating in cases where, I'll just do it. It takes me 5 minutes or 10 minutes to explain. So I want to kind of jump into talking a little bit about delegation and what, from your perspective, are some key principles for effectively delegating any task, and how do you apply that to your team?
As far as I'm concerned, learning how to delegate and what to delegate is probably the entrepreneur, the business owner's most important skill. Because again, as we talked about at the beginning, doing it all yourself is recipe for failure. And so, for instance, in my personal life, I don't write my own checks. I'm not good with the finances. I'm a lawyer. I'm an adjuster. I'm a coverage guy. I'm an operations business person, but I'm not a financial guy. And so I have a bookkeeper for years, write my checks and balance my checkbook. I'm not good at that. I delegated that to somebody so I'm freed up to be a husband and a father and a business person and to run my business that way. But in the office, it's important to delegate because until recently, when we started the company, we started this company in 2004, launched it in 2005. We had 8 employees. 6 of us were the founding partners. We only had 2 employees working for us. And now we have over 300 employees. At the beginning, it was hard to delegate. But what we did before we had the employees is we outsourced. We delegated those functions that we didn't know how to do or couldn't do as well to outside people. So the stuff that we delegated were things like answering the phones. Why hire 30 people to answer your phones when you can hire a service that will do it professionally for you? You need licensed people? They'll do it. You want it 24 hours? They'll hire people in different parts of the world to answer your phones. So you have to decide what you need to take. What is the best thing that you know how to do? What do you hit butt at? And what do you just not want to deal with? Do I want to sit there answering phones? No. Do I want to make sure do I want to sell my policy? Yes, I do. Do I want to market? Yes, I do. Do I want to deal with customer issues that are large-scale problems if they arise? Yes. But answering phones, mailing out the policies, receiving the money, depositing it in the bank, no, I'm not doing that. And so we delegated to great outsource partners at the beginning that helped us grow. And so that was the first type of delegation. But once you're in the office, you have to make sure that you don't You don't hold on. What is that 38 Special song? Hold on loosely, but don't let go. Don't let go. But you do have to have other people doing the work. And so what you want to do is you want them to do the work. You do not want to micromanage because then you're just doing the work yourself. That's silly. But you also want to audit their work. I'm not saying that you should let people do something in your business and never look at it, even if they're super smart people. It has to be something that goes for your values and your mission in the company. So you need to audit the work they're doing, but you don't have to do the work they're doing. So I guess my advice is if you can outsource, outsource. Do that. When you have employees in the office, or now we're hybrid or remote or what have you, but in your organization, determine what tasks they're best at, what they're better than you at, and keep those things that you're better at. And make sure that you oversee them, but that you don't get into the weeds because you're wasting your time and you're frustrating people. I don't need a boss or a partner telling me this is how you have to write that sentence. Okay, as long as there's no spelling errors, you write the sentence the way you want. You format the letter the way you want. You handle it the way you want, as long as it gets done and to the quality levels that we've set. So I think that's what I would say to most people in the business world.
Today's episode is brought to you by Renaissance, Redefining Success for Modern Mavericks, a book I co-authored with Michelle Klein. It's a straightforward guide through reinvention, leadership, and building real freedom. Inside, you'll find practical frameworks, the Maverick test, and stories that help you take action today. Pick it up at executiveconnectexperience.com/Maverick. Use the code EXEC for 10% off. I love it. I think, managing teams and delegation, you nailed it, is key to be able to let people do things the way they do it. And I always say keeping them on the yellow brick road. So give them the autonomy to do their job the best of their ability. And if there's things and ways that they could do better or they're not doing, sharing that with them and really collaborating with people to service your customers the way that's your brand and is well received in the industry. So kind of zoning in a little bit deeper, pulling that onion back a little bit more. In the world where everybody wants everything in an hour or yesterday, and people are overloaded with technology and really cognitive overload, how do you, maybe up and coming executives, how do you help them manage large teams of people and complex problems where it's high stress? And so you have people that are delegating tasks and you're still overwhelmed with all of the things that are coming at you. So how do you manage, I guess the better question is, how do you manage large, complex companies and problems? So you can delegate some of it, but at some point, a lot of times I hear from leaders that they're constantly being bombarded. They delegate one thing and 12 more things happen, and they delegate something else, and they're just constantly being pulled all day, every day. So their list of things to do, 5 things today, 10 things tomorrow. How do you manage that in high performing teams?
Well, the first thing I'm going to tell you is that there really is no absolutely easy solution. People are going to be overwhelmed in today's day and age. People want it fast. They need it now. They're not willing to be patient for the most part. And so you have to adapt to that. You can train your customers in a way to say, listen, you wouldn't want to order a pasta dish, I'll say, because I'm Italian. You wouldn't want to order a pasta dish and it comes out 30 seconds after you ordered it. You'd be very suspicious of a dish that came out of the kitchen in 30 seconds, right? So sometimes speed isn't always what the customer really wants. What they want is quality. They don't want to wait 30 days for a claim to be processed, or they don't want to wait 45 minutes for the phone to be answered. But when you do pick it up, they want to make sure that you've answered the question correctly. So I don't want to oversell the speed item. I think we need to train people, that especially customers, that if you want something good and something done right, it's going to take time, whether that's food or whether that's insurance. If I come out and do your claim and a day later the claim is closed, you're going to think I didn't look at everything. So I need to make sure that people spend time on claims or policies or marketing to make sure that you have exactly the highest level of quality before you put it out into the world. But I
I love
really,
that you said that.
yeah, no, and I really feel like some people want everything so fast, and sometimes you got to push back and say no. You don't want it so fast. You want it done right. If I can do it right and quicker, what is it? You want something cheap, you want something fast, and you want something high quality, but you only get to pick two out of those three, right? There's a triangle. You can't have all three. You can pick, cheap and fast. You could pick, good and fat, but you can't pick all three. And so what we're trying to offer is the best of all worlds, but there's going to be some time delay in that. There always will be. And so you asked about managing teams, and I guess my first thought is you can't cure normal. It's normal to be overwhelmed. It's normal to always have lots to do, and you're not going to get away from that. If you think there's a product that will make this easy, you do not need to be in business. Everybody who's in business, no matter what level you're at, you already know that it's going to take a lot of hard work and it's going to be a lot of headaches, and you're going to keep Advil and Motrin and Tylenol in business, my friend. Right? Welcome to adulthood. Hope you like Advil. So that's how it is. So what I would say is, yes, look for products and computerized items that will help you stay on task. Don't waste your time with stupid meetings, but have a meeting when necessary to go over to make sure that everybody is doing what they have to do, and divide tasks up appropriately. Once you've divided up the tasks appropriately, though, if you're great at social media, I give you the social media part when we launch this company. We just did. We launched Ovation Home Insurance Exchange. Now, obviously, it's been years since we launched another company. The last time we launched Edison, after we bought it and relaunched it, was 2010. So we're just, it's been a long time since we had launched something that large. And there were a ton of moving parts. We're a regulated industry. And so it's even harder to do that. We can't just start selling policies. We have to have state approval and regulatory approval and approved forms, and we have to run actuary numbers. And so what we did is we utilized once a week, not every single day. Everybody had a certain task, and at the end of the week, we went through the list. We had a project manager who asked everybody what they did, what needed to be done next, and what was stopping them from going forward. So in one instance, in order for us to be able to accept credit cards and certain things like that and payments for our bank, we had to give them our insurance number, our NAIC, which is kind of it's the number of your insurance company with the National Association of Insurance Commissioners. But we were still waiting on that because we had to get our actual certificate of authority from the state to request that to give it to the banks and the credit card companies. So we understood what we needed first to go next. And we heard that because every week we didn't keep asking, why don't we have this? We knew that we needed A, to have B, to have C. So you've got to make sure that you have either a product or a way of tracking items, and then you delegate. We talked about delegating those small tasks to the individuals that have to do it, and then follow up. Don't have wasteful meetings if you don't have any new information, but set a regular time and make sure that people have that info and find out what they need next, what's on that shopping list next in order to get to the end result. But if people think there's some easy solution that, hey, I manage huge projects and I don't, no, I'm waking up at 3 a.m. thinking I forgot something. That's the way it is. And when I retire and I've got my fly fishing rod and I'm playing the piano in the afternoons, then I'll worry about it. But right now, I'm knee deep in it. And, in the heat of battle, you're just going to have to put up with the bullets flying over your head.
I absolutely agree. I was just chuckling when you were saying that. I've gotten emails where people will send me an email at, say it's 10 o'clock in the morning, and 5 minutes later, they're like, did you read my email? I'm like, no, I didn't read your email. And I laugh because this is the world we're in. And so I use a lot of really, like you mentioned, do we need to have a meeting? Are we just meeting to meet? Do we need to waste that hour? So really laying out your day at the beginning of the day, and we've become, a culture where every email needs to be responded to right away. The problem, if you're in response mode all day, you're not moving your business forward. So, the tool that I use is turning my email off and really focusing on what are the things I need to get done. Oh, there's 7 meetings on my calendar, 4 of which I'm not needed at because I can delegate to the people on that call, 3 of which I am, which frees up 4 hours. So I think you nailed it. It is a lot of hitting the ground running but really thinking where you need to be. And if you don't need to be somewhere, don't show up, right?
I agree, and I'll decline meetings or I'll click on maybe, you know, and they'll say, "Oh, you're not going to show up," and I'm like, "Look, you don't need me. I'm chief legal officer of the company, and you're going to be going over individual files. Unless there's something really big, you don't need me." And sometimes I intimidate. I'm funny. I don't take myself that seriously, but sometimes when people, oh, the chief legal officer is in this meeting, the whole meeting changes. I don't want that. I want you to tell me what you need and we'll try to help you get it done. So if I don't need to be in a meeting, it will actually sometimes run smoother. My business partner, Clint, he serves as the president of the company, kind of runs the day-to-day operations, underwriting, sales, marketing. And if he walks into the room, even though he is the nicest teddy bear, sweet guy, hysterical, but he walks into a room and, some of the employees who don't know him as well get very intimidated and it shuts down the conversation. So if you don't need to be there, don't. But like you said, plan your day out in the morning or the day before. Figure out where you have to be because you've actually got to not just be responding. There's actual work to do to push the business forward. What's our next plan? How are we getting to the next level? How are we serving our customers even better? And if all you're doing is responding to emergencies, you're not going to get to that level. And I think too many entrepreneurs, business owners, like you said, they try to respond too quickly. You know what? Send a quick email saying, I received your email. I'm going to be researching this and I'll get back to you as soon as my research is complete. That's it. Now they know you got it, right? And it's not like what's even worse. Yep. They email you. And then if they're in the office, they walk into your office to ask you if you got the email. Well, isn't the whole purpose of emails you don't walk into my office and ask me if I got it? No, they're walking in my office. And I work hybrid. I'm 3 days in the office, 2 days remote or in meetings. And so when I'm in the office, sure, people want to walk in, but don't send me an email. Just walk in and say, hey, what do you think about the Jones deal? And we'll talk about it,
Yeah. It's funny. I know I have all these things that keep popping into my head and you can't make this stuff up. And I think, I have a lot of friends that are entrepreneurs and the ones that have been very successful is they lead themselves. And they, like you mentioned at the beginning, they delegate the things they don't need to do, like, billing or whatever it is that they're not good at. And they really know themselves and what they're good at and what they're not good at. And they delegate out and they build teams of people around them where they're weak. And I think you talked a little bit about letting your people lead. And I think that is something that, is hard for a lot of leaders that I've heard in my time as a leader. Oh, I can't let, a junior person sit in on a senior meeting because I'm the senior person. And so, talking a little bit about that, you're the senior, the chief legal officer, you have people below you. And how do you build trust in your people below you to empower them to make decisions where they don't have to go back and say, okay, Stacey, here are these 20 things. Are you okay with this and this and this and this? And, how do you empower your people to take action on things?
This episode is sponsored by Texas Freedom Fund. If you're an accredited investor looking to protect your purchasing power, reduce taxes, and own real Texas energy assets, listen up. The Texas Freedom Fund invests in proven oil and gas projects in the Eagle Ford Shale with no debt and strong tax advantages like intangible drilling costs applied against active income. Minimum investment is $25,000 and the sponsor invests right alongside every single deal. Learn more at texasfreedomfund.executiveconnectpodcast.com. Energy, opportunity, and Texas grit working for your portfolio.
Well, first of all, you have to make sure you're not someone who fire hoses their ideas. I don't know if you've heard that term. We use that in our office. You come in with a great idea and someone just turns on the water and fire hoses you and says, nah, that idea is terrible. It'll never work. And now you're not going to bring up an idea later. So at our company, we don't do that. And if we see that we're doing it, we take a step back and say, wait, I apologize. I might have been fire hosing you. I don't mean to. Let's discuss your idea. Because sometimes not every idea is great, right? But there are seeds of greatness in almost every idea. And it's important that we hear you out because at one point you will come up or someone will come up with an idea, a junior person, that will change your company. It's happened in our company. It's happened at law firms where I've worked at where they've said we should go into a certain area of law. and we had never thought about it. We researched it, and it became something that started generating at that time 30% of our law firm revenue. So my real thought process is to make sure that I am open-minded to people. Number two, I also want to make sure that I support them. It's been said that your success is really related to how often and how well you give away the credit. So if I take credit and I'm Stacey G and I'm, no, it's not going to work. I give my junior people and people on my same quote level, my partners, credit. I will say that it was this person's idea, even if it was, 50-50. It was this person's idea. They came up with it. I give them a lot of credit because not only do they grow in their own eyes, like, wow, he's giving me credit. It also, their abilities and their responsibilities and the confidence they have, the confidence that the rest of the board or the other leaders have in that individual grows because they're like, wow, he or she really came up with that idea. And so you push your own people. So you've got to support them and support them publicly. So in that Teams meeting, in that Zoom meeting, in that physical meeting in the office, you have to say, yeah, Jane or Joe, they came up with this idea and I was really impressed. And, wow, Joe and Jane came up with that idea. That's terrific. You want to make sure that you give away credit. The people who hog the credit, those people. They're the egocentric. I don't like those people. I don't want to work with those people. And it doesn't mean that you can't be proud of yourself, right? You graduate from medical school. You should be super proud of yourself. You start a business that gets to $1 billion. I'm proud of myself and everybody that helped us get there. But to walk in and think that I'm the guy who did it all, that's silly. It's counterproductive and it's not true. So you let people know. That could be, again, with that kind of assistance and backup and props, as we say. It can also be with bonuses. We give out bonuses. Again, we're an insurance company. So, we're always careful about how we spend our money. But if people do a good job, you're damn right they're entitled to some bonus. Okay. And it's got to be reasonable. But you want people to know that we appreciate what you've done and we're also going to compensate you for it. And that goes a long, long way in today's day.
Yeah, I just heard something recently with a friend of mine who is an executive at a major hospital here. And they were talking about finding lower, the janitorial team and lower non-executive people to come up with solution to their biggest problems. So some of the lowest tiered people in organizations are solving some of the largest problems for these mega businesses. And so I think you nailed it, is really getting, there's seeds of greatness. I love that in every idea, whether that's today or tomorrow. It's up to the leaders to make that decision. But I think, making and creating an environment where no matter what your title is, you're empowered to share it, and creating a culture like that will really drive businesses forward. Because a lot of times the higher you get in organizations, the far removed you are out of the actual business. And I think you touched on it a little bit at the beginning where you were bottom up, right? So you've seen all layers, all things. You instantly have that commonality with your staff. Hey, yeah, back in the day, I was doing this. I was taking out the trash when I was, the first 10 employees at our company. And so I think that gives you more credibility with your people. And because sometimes I think executives are, people see them as superheroes, right? I'm never going to be an executive. I'm never like that guy or that girl. I don't have those skill sets. But I think you hit on it and touched on it a little bit at the beginning. It takes time and to learn these layers. I don't know if you have any other thoughts on that.
I do. One of the items that you started hinting at, which I really want to point out to business leaders, is to remember that it's not just that you want to do the right thing and you want to get people's opinion because you want to, pump them up and you want to get their ideas. Yes, you do. But they're also they're closer to the problem than you are. So I also have an associate in risk management, and we talk about risk centers. And so you have the guy at the top saying, well, this is what's dangerous in that area. This is what we should be looking for. No, you have the guy or the gal that's actually doing the stamping on the, on the press. Say, look, this is dangerous and here's how to make it safer. I'm the executive. I've never pressed metal, but you go down to the factory workers and they say, this is what we need. They are in the line. Stop asking the generals what they need. Ask the private, ask the infantryman or woman what they need in order to defend themselves, right? It's the same thing. it's not just that we know a lot, and we do have a lot of knowledge from our level. And I've been through there. But you know what? It's changed in 20 years. And it's changed in 30 years. And so I need to know what's going on. What are they seeing? What are people doing? And if you don't want someone coming to me saying, well, I would have said this 2 years ago, but I didn't want to say anything. No, you are in the front of the action. You are there. Tell us what's going on. I mean, take a look. I always say I don't want to have the Nova moment, the Chevy Nova. They went to go sell it in Latin America, and had they had anybody who spoke Spanish in their marketing team, they would have realized that Nova means no va. It means don't go. It means doesn't go. They were trying to sell the Chevy doesn't go in a culture that, I mean, that's the dumbest thing. And there, have somebody who speaks Spanish on there. I happen to speak Spanish. My wife's Hispanic. And so, have someone who understands that, right? Otherwise, you've just tried to sell something that can't be sold. I don't want that Nova moment. I want to make sure that I get the people who are, quote, at that level in the trenches, because I was there. But give me the information so I can solve the problem. If you do that, you're going to be successful 99% of the time.
Absolutely. I love it. I love your energy, Stacey. I love how passionate you are and just on this area of delegation. So just kind of in closing, one last question. Any kind of final thoughts in delegating and leadership that you want to share with our executive listeners?
But number one, I would say try not to be a control freak. I think those of us that are business owners and entrepreneurs, and those of us who are also parents, right? We want to control everything. And sometimes, right, you got to let your kid pick what they want to eat. Listen, they don't like the spinach. They don't have to eat spinach, but maybe they like something else. Maybe they like corn. Maybe they like broccoli. Maybe they like carrots. You don't have to force them to eat spinach. It's the same thing at work. We don't have to force everything, every square peg into a round hole or vice versa. We have to let people figure out what works best for them. Some people like to work on an Apple computer. Some people like to work on a Windows computer. We have both in our office because virtually all of our systems are in the cloud, so it doesn't matter. The point is, why am I going to force everybody to use a system they're not into? I love Apple products, but I don't understand Apple computers, like Apple laptops. I don't understand the language, how it works. I hit the wrong thing. I keep getting definitions coming up. I don't understand it. I like Windows. Some people hate Windows, and why do we have to force people into one thing? Figure out how they best work and let them do it that way. You've got to step back and say, okay, my life, my work, I'm not going to control everything, because what I want to control really is the outcome, not the input. I want to control the fact that we're going to make money, serve our clients well, serve the customers well, serve my employees well, serve my agents well, and serve the community at large well. But I don't need to tell them exactly how that has to get done. I have to hire smart people and let them do the job. And so that's the last thing I would say to entrepreneurs, business owners, and people out there that are on the way to becoming business owners or executives. It's in everybody. They've just got to keep doing that and follow some of our advice. Follow the advice they hear on your podcast, because there's a lot of good information coming out on the weeks.
Yes, thank you for that, Stacey. And I know one of the things I've always subscribed to, and I love hearing what you just mentioned, is find your gift and give it away. And I think you're doing a tremendous job sharing your gift and your energy with the world. And it absolutely shows in your business. And so I just want to thank you. Thank you. You're a busy man. I want to thank you for being here today on the Executive Connect podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. And I'm a huge fan. It's terrific. Much appreciated.